Hi everyone. So today I finally decided to talk about the book that is perhaps a bit more difficult to discuss. And I had been postponing this for a while, but here we go. Again, this is all non traditional. There will be silences in this video. Um, Possible outside noises or the noises that our rabbits make. So that's just what I do. Anyway, the book is A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, so apologies if it's mispronounced, but I think many of you are familiar with the book. So, okay, I also gotta say there will be spoilers. I think there will be spoilers and they are unavoidable. But I will try to keep them to a minimum. So, a head full of ghosts. What happens there? Um, it's the Barrett family and their 14-year-old daughter, Marjorie. She starts exhibiting very bizarre symptoms and behaviors. And they do try psychiatric medications. She goes to therapy. She sees psychiatrists, I believe. Um, However, that doesn't seem to work. And the family agrees to participate in a TV reality show called The Possession, which would document sort of Marjorie's condition and the family's struggles, and of course, feature an exorcism, right? Now, the big thing about this book is that at the end of it, it's left up to us, the readers, to decide which interpretation we want to take up. So the possibilities are it was all entirely supernatural, and Marjorie was in fact possessed. Now, I forgot to add that the book is narrated from the perspective of her younger sister as she becomes an adult. So it's years later, and the younger sister, Mary, is reconstructing what might have been happening when she was only 8. So her own memories are entirely unreliable. So, right, the possible interpretations are it was all entirely supernatural, Marjorie was possessed. The second option is Marjorie was faking. And yes, there are some suggestions that she might have been, but I don't think this is the case at all. And the third interpretation is there was nothing supernatural, and Marjorie was mentally ill, severely mentally ill. Now, I also have to add that the story ends with a tragedy. So there is that. I will try to keep it vague, but again, I'm not sure that I will be able to. So, which interpretation do I choose? It's the third one. I do not believe that there was anything supernatural. I do, however, believe that Marjorie was displaying all the symptoms of schizophrenia, which would manifest around that age, or maybe at an age that's a bit later than that. Okay, that was a word salad. Sorry about that. So, why do I think that? Well, the first reason is simple. I think that there are many books about possession and exorcisms. Um, and not on the, it's a bit on the empty side for me at this point. However, if we say that Marjorie had schizophrenia, a lot of things suddenly make sense. For example, Marjorie tries to convince her younger sister Mary that their father uh, essentially fits the profile of a family annihilator. So she weaves these tales of how their father is unhinged and he's gonna do something awful. And yes, he does fit that profile. However, cognitive distortions, hallucinations, and very importantly, paranoid thinking and hostility often aimed at a family member of the person with schizophrenia. Well, they're the hallmarks of the illness. And I think it's an interpretation that should make us think about how often schizophrenia or some other serious mental illnesses they're failed to be diagnosed and recognized correctly. Now, think about the very real case of the Slender Man um, in Wisconsin. That wasn't that long ago. One of the girls was, in fact, schizophrenic, and she is. I shouldn't use the past tense. However, her family knew that her own father had schizophrenia, but it was never discussed. And once this young teenager started displaying uh, these unhealthy, obsessive behaviors, well, that didn't sound any alarms. It is staggering. It's infuriating to me. So the family would not talk about it. And this also should make us question the stigma that's still attached to these conditions. So, to me, this is the most compelling interpretation of what happened. And I think that, so for example, there is also a reporter who is interested in essentially turning everything into potentially a best selling book. So she has a lot of conversations with the adult Mary, the younger sister. However, at the very end, the reporter drops the project without an explanation. Why would she drop this uh, project where the book could be a huge success? Well, I think it was because she realized that, yes, the family completely failed to address what their older daughter had, and I would argue it is schizophrenia. So I do want to provide kind of a vantage point before I wrap this up for interpreting this book. And this is only that. Okay, I want to be emphatic about it. This is a vantage point. So, I am talking about Annelise Michel, who is the real life person who quote unquote inspired the exorcism of Emily Rose, the movie. So this was in the 70s. She was born, I believe, in 1952 in Bavaria, Germany. Her family was very religious. She was very religious. As she was becoming an adolescent, she, again, this is a real life person, she started displaying very, very outlandish behaviors. And this went on and on. Hyper religiosity was also one of them. She was diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy. Lobe, did I say lobe? Okay. Um, and she went on medications. However, they did not make a dent. Her condition kept deteriorating. So naturally, the parents, and she did consent to this, they invited two priests to start performing um, exorcisms. Now, at that point, Annelise's condition was very, very bad. Things were dire. Now, in the year before her death, and she was only, I believe, 23 when she died of malnutrition and dehydration, she underwent 67 exorcisms. There are tapes, they were audio taped, and there are tapes available. I do not want to listen to them, but for my own reasons. So the exorcisms went on and on. She would not eat. And at that point, her initial consent, it did not stand any longer because she was not of sound mind. She was non-compos mentis, essentially. But they did not stop, and this is what happened. This is the girl who was tortured. She was tied to her bed, and instead of being fed through the IV and given fluids, she was just fucking tortured. Now, after she died, the church, as you'd expected, uh, said that, yeah, this was a mistake, and Annelise Michel had a mental illness. So her parents and the priests went on trial. Her parents went on trial for negligent homicide. But as far as I remember, everyone got essentially a slap on the wrist. Now, what did happen in that case? Well, no one knows. There was nothing that was detected during the autopsy. Maybe not even temporal lobe epilepsy. However, schizophrenia is something that would not be detectable even then. So it's a possibility, but we do not know. We just don't. There was nothing definitive um, in the autopsy. So yes, I do think it's a possibility for someone to kind of juxtapose these two cases. One is, of course, fictional. we read about it in a head full of ghosts, and the other one is just all too real and brutal, and that's the person behind the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose, Annalise Michel. So I hope that someone will write or create some kind of an in-depth analysis. I do want to make it clear, though, that in the case of the fictional girl Marjorie, if we grant that she had schizophrenia, okay, she's a minor, but she would still be considered criminally insane. Now, here I'm alluding to what happens, to the tragedy that happens in the book. So, in this sense, she is a victim because of her illness, but she would still be considered criminally insane. So, not guilty by reason of insanity. With Annalise Michel, she is a victim, pure and simple. And I do want to make that clear, as I said. Okay, there is a lot more that I could say. Maybe I will make a second part to this video, to this review. If anyone wants to hear that, let me know. If not, yeah, here you go. That's all I have to say for now. That's all I have. And this is kind of pushing the time limit. So thank you for listening and watching. And as always, I send my regards.